is a probability that things are going to devolve into.
Well, there's a lot of evidence in the very, very current events that could show how that could play out in ways that, that we're seeing now that are not just liberal versus conservative or Dem, we got a migrant situation that is becoming more violent, and the outcome of the election could seriously affect the migrant situation. My concern is that if Trump wins, they're going to unleash the migrants in a violent way. That is my concern.
Well, they're going to have some way to try to stop it. They'll say,
Yeah,
they'll invoke an insurrection clause. They'll refuse to certify it, that type of thing. And we wanted to see if it was illuminated, and it was. The condition was, if it's illuminated and the sun shines and the rocks, the stones light up, that means political unrest and fighting between political parties near future in the U.S.
I saw lots of shimmering on the stones.
Yeah. So there we go. Tense in the U.S. political landscape. Are we heading for a collision? Could we see actual unrest in the near future? Could there be confrontations that escalate between the two political parties? Are things about to erupt into something very unpleasant? Hi, I'm Dick Allguire of Future Forecasting Group. We use remote viewing to predict upcoming events. We are in times of great change, and recently our remote viewers at Future Forecasting Group have been immersed in looking at current events and big changes that are just over the horizon. And I wanted to see if things are going to reach a boiling point soon between the two political factions in the U.S. I wanted to see if we're going to witness unrest and even something more troubling. So I decided to have the remote viewers work this as a target of interest. This is the target ID, IV87-ES23. That code was randomly generated by a random numbered letter generator. The target is civil unrest, physical fighting between political parties, United States, near future. Now there's a wrinkle to this. I wanted to get data about the escalating political tension without exposing the viewers directly to that. Why is that? Because viewers who watch the news are expecting this, and if they start gathering data of this nature, they can amplify it. I also wanted to task this in a way that would shield the viewers from actually witnessing troubling images and get the data without any of their expectations, their bias, or analytical thoughts corrupting the data. I decided to employ a mask and use entrainment to get the answers. Now, a mask can allow viewers to identify and collect indicators from the mask in a sterile way that will provide data about the real target of interest without the viewers being exposed to the actual target. Now, I designed my first remote viewing mask in 2005. In 2008, I used masking and entrainment to successfully predict the 2008 stock market crash and financial meltdown. This is the target IV87-ES23. Civil unrest, outbreak of physical fighting between political parties, United States, near future. This is the tasking document for the mask. The viewer will perceive Fauner Stone's solstice ceremony, Fauner Woods, Terrapin, June 21, 2025. And these are the conditions. If in 2025. And these are the conditions. If there is civil war, unrest, political violence between parties in the United States in the near future, then the viewer will perceive a bright sunrise with beams of sunlight coming from the northeast horizon through Fauner Pass. If the U.S. is peaceful in the near future, the sunrise will be obscured by clouds and rain. No one will see the sunrise. The stone monuments will appear dull and static. There will be wind. The site will be quiet with only a very few people present. The birds will remain caged. Those people will be intense, sheltered from wind and rain. The mood of the few people there will be disappointed and somber. Target IV87-ES23. This target is masked. The viewers worked under double-blind protocol. They were not told this.
So I just wanted to play a little bit of that to preface what I'm going to say. Dick Allguire, I've watched him say some very suspect things over the past. I've seen him since he used to be with Courtney Brown. As I studied remote viewing for years, in practice and in just studying the phenomena of remote viewing. And so I follow, I've been following this for some time. And Dick Allgaier, to me, he says some very suspect things on another level that I'm not going to get into um, in this video. And um, but what I want to talk about is he so-called ta- taxed his group with this Civil War scenario and to look at a Civil War scenario, and I found some very weird things about what he did. Um, Basically, um, you could have simply did a he overcomplicated this, and the question is why? Why did he overcomplicate this whole study, and why did he do it? And it makes me suspect that Dick Allgaier may be like tied to some alphabet agencies or something like that. Like he's a you know he's trying to muddy the waters in remote viewing. Like there's something about him that's not quite right, and this proved it to me. Like he said some suspect things, as far as on a some coded. To me, it's kind of like I don't know. I don't want to go there, but just some coded racial bias type of statements he's made in the past. That he's tried to like dip into politics and then make coded statements, and I picked up on it. Like let's just say very crackery statements, and so he was just always just was suspect. I found him suspect, and this kind of really set off my alarms because he took a simple, because I study RV, I understand targeting. I've studied, people like Russell Targ, Hal Puthoff, the original Ingo Swann, all the originators of remote viewing, right? I've watched people do presentations on ARV and different concepts, and I've practiced these things, and I have an idea of what works and what doesn't work. And so when he did this, I started. First, I thought it was interesting, and then I said, "Wait a minute." I went back and looked at it again. And I said, "This is total bullshit." I started to call bullshit on it after I looked at it a couple of times, and the reason I called bullshit on it, and it was because he overcomplicated the. Once I started to study what he did, I realized he overcomplicated the whole thing, and he not only overcomplicated it, he convoluted it, which means that in a way that the only way they could have got, let's say, credible feedback is if they're just lucky, which is they're just totally lucky, because the way he created the mask, a mask is just nothing but what's called ARV, associative remote viewing, where you associate you mask the target by using basically a symbol or another target to mask the actual target. So that's what he's talking about. So he tried to make it, and then when I looked into it, he was using all these weird like protocols where you know, he talked about psychically perceiving something, and then the psychics will perceive something that is perceived in the future. And when I looked at it, I was like, what the fuck is this? Why is he doing this? And then it led me to a question: if this could be done much simpler, why would he overcomplicate this? And so it had to be like misinformation, disinformation. Like he's up to something, right? It just started making me think. This guy, I already was quite suspicious of Dick Allgaier over a long period of time when he started making certain like, just just certain statements that was just, just left me with a bad taste in my mouth. You know what I mean? And so I always had a side, looked at him with a side eye. But when he did this, that's when it stood out to me. First, like I said, I thought it was interesting, but when I broke it down, I kept looking at it. I said, this is total bullshit. This is total pseudoscience, particularly in the area of remote viewing, because basically it's what's called an associative remote viewing task. So he could have just done that simply. He could have taken, for instance, um, like he could have gave these guys a random number. Like he could have generated a random number and then generated two random targets and said if it's target A, there will be a civil war, will be unrest. He could even put a time period in there. Within the next 2 years, if it's target B, there won't be, in the next 2 years, whatever, right? Real simple type of remote viewing task. And then the remote viewers would have simply picked up on, would have drawn on the information from a static target that, could have been anything. But it would have had to have been static. See, it has to be static. He tried to the way when you look at it, what he did was create a non-static target, a dynamic target in the future. And then he convoluted it with some other shit that I was like, what is he doing? Like, he said he was psychically perceiving a target and this and that. And I was looking at it and I was like, this is foolishness, right? Because number one, you overcomplicated something that didn't have to be overcomplicated. That's number one. Because there's already associative remote viewing protocols that you could have used that's very simple. So you went into you went to try to view a target, and then you created an overly complicated process for viewing the target. What is it? Occam's razor that says the simplest answer is always the correct answer. Why would you complicate a process? You see? So it didn't make sense. Once he started overcomplicating it, I started saying, wait a minute, this is way overcomplicated. Why did he do this? And then I said, well, let's look at it from a scientific standpoint. Is it to derive a better quality of data? And when I looked at it, point two, no. It would actually destroy the quality of data. It wouldn't improve it. What he did, when you go back and look at what he did, it would make the task harder for the viewers, and it would convolute it, and it would cause a bad outcome, a negative outcome for the remote viewers that were trying to work on that target. It wouldn't, for no reason, because from a qualitative standpoint, he wasn't doing anything that would improve the quality. You see? So why do it? Unless you were trying to muddy the water. You see? That's why I said Dick Allguire is an agent of some kind. Because, and this whole thing is, I don't know why, it's some type of disinformation, misinformation type of project that he's up to. Like, I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't do some real remote viewing, and I'm just saying like, and he may actually do real remote viewing, but what I'm saying is he has a dual agenda. He's like a double agent type of guy. Like he's up to something. Like, because you have to ask yourself a question. Why would you do that? First of all, why would you bring up this target? He brought up this target. Nobody in the group, nobody brought it to the group. He brought it up, and then he created this complex masking ARV scenario that would produce bad results, probably, right? It would probably produce the worst results, ever. And any data that came up that was correct would be pure luck. Why would you do that? You see, purely unscientific. You see, why do I say that? Because RV is based on feedback. So if you're gonna make a target for July or June 2025, and we're currently in 2024, how are you going to derive feedback from something that hasn't happened yet? You're breaking the rules of remote viewing scientific RV. You see what I'm saying? He broke a basic rule. When he broke that basic rule, then I had to ask myself, why is he breaking a basic rule of RV science? You see, in the art and the science of RV, you're breaking the rules, sir. You're creating. And then, how is it that you're going to get feedback and say and make a judgment call about something? So, if these events take place before the time of your target, it's total bullshit. Your target is in 2025. We're in 2024, and you're making a judgment call that yes, there will be civil unrest based on a dynamic target that you don't even know the result of yet. What? Why would you do that? And how could you sit up and discuss this as if you would be getting credible results? And say, yes, looking at this data, there will be civil unrest based on a target that we haven't even got feedback on, that's in 2025. You're breaking remote viewing protocols, sir. This is total pseudoscience. I mean, it's bad enough we're dealing with, when you deal with RV, it's bad enough that you're dealing with an experimental, you know, something, it's purely experimental, right? It's pretty fringe and experimental. But then you're going to inject all of these weird protocols that are unscientific. You're making it worse. Where people look at it and they say, well, this is, if I can look at it and say, this is total bullshit, any scientist or technician can look at it, because that's what I am. I'm actually a technician by trade. I'm actually a systems engineer by trade. So if I can look at that and say, this is total bullshit, anybody can. You see? You're breaking the protocols. You're using a non-static target from 2025 as feedback, call it masking or whatever, right? As a mask or feedback, an associative mask in 2024. We don't know what has happened yet. So you can't make a decision on the outcome. I'm trying to make that as simple as possible to understand why he's bullshit. You see? It won't work. And any information you get is just dumb luck. And more than likely, you'll be wrong. That's what I'm saying. You'll be wrong. You see? And either Dick Allguire is stupid as shit, right? Or he did this on purpose. Right? He's purposely trying to mislead people in the remote viewing community. And he's trying to mislead people. Why would he be doing that unless he's some type of agent? Which I wouldn't be surprised. Dick Allguire worked in the news. Let me tell you something about the news. I've worked around like these. I work in IT, and so I know that there's weird connections between, for instance, political groups and the news media. I worked in an office, just to be specific, so I can give a specific example. I worked in an office one time. They called me to do some work in it was the office of a political senator. Matter of fact, I'll drop his name. His name was Elijah Cummings. He's dead now. I worked in his office one day, in one of his satellite offices. And they called me in because there was some broken equipment, wiring, network equipment, etc. So I got the contract to go in and fix the equipment. One thing I noticed while working on the equipment, I was working near like fax machines, copiers, and some of the computers. And I noticed like all these lists of news agencies where it seems like these people had direct lines in between basically the news media. From what I was reading on this paperwork and seeing, it was kind of like stamped on the wall, right by like computers and printers, copiers, fax machines and stuff. And you start to notice, what I took from that was, you realize that these people are closely integrated. The news media is closely integrated with the government facility, with government agencies and stuff like that. And it's not for, it's pretty much nefarious purposes. They're pushing propaganda and talking points. And Dick Allguire came out of the news media, you see, which doesn't, so you start to realize the news media is a compromise. Even JFK talked about this before they killed him. The news media in the United States is a compromise organization, you see. And he came out of the news media, so I wouldn't be shocked. You see, like Dick Allguire is a compromised individual at some level. I'm not sure what. To me, it would lead me to believe, based on what he just did, that Dick Allguire is some type of an agent. Like he works for an agency. You see, part time, and has probably for a very long time, part of his life, probably ever since he worked at the news agencies. You see, because these people are integrated, and so when he start, why he, so it leads me to believe that that's a connection to kind of why he's doing this disinformation, and which is, but it's funny that he said, I mean, because I can't believe he's that stupid, right? And if I can figure it out, he can figure he can figure it out. You see, and other people can figure it out. Why would you do this convoluted, ridiculous experiment and then claim that you're going to get these pristine results when it's just the opposite of that? It's a total clusterfuck. And um, if you get any credible data, it would be blind luck, not remote viewing. And then you come out and you promote it as, well, yes, it's a high probability of a civil war based on my data. No, it's not. It's a high probability. If it is, it has nothing to do with your data. Because your experimental process was total bullshit. It's easily provable. And it could have been done much simpler and much more effectively. You see? So then that begs the question, what are you up to, Dick Allguire, right? What is that guy up to? And why would he be promoting this? Why is he promoting this? You see? It's one thing to have actual credible data and do something in a scientific matter. It's another reason to come up with a bunch of bullshit and then promote it. So either you're a total dumbass, right, with no understanding of scientific protocols, or you're up to you're pushing an agenda. Either one or A or B. Which one is it? Right? And I don't think the guy's a total dumbass. So I would have to go with B. Dick Allguire is pushing an agenda. And he's also destroying the credibility of remote viewing as a real science and art. I'm going to land my plane. I don't want to belabor the point. But if you go over and you look at, like I went over it a couple of times, go over and look at what he did and the way he did it. If you're a technical person or whatever, you studied these things, you'll realize but just like the UFO community, when you come around fringe subjects, there's a lot of very weak-minded people. You see, and the people on his team, a lot of them like Naeem and Edward and Daz and the rest of them, right? I don't mean to bash them, but let me put it like this: they would never call him out because they don't want to rock the boat. You see, because at a certain level, these people are taking money from Dick Allguire. Dick Allguire is probably the head of the FFG, the Future Forecasting Group, and he's probably got a lot of juice with. They got websites and stuff like that, and they're making money. You see, and as they say, money is the root of all evil. And so these people are collecting a check from Dick with or from Dick Allguire. You see, and so they're not gonna question him. And even if they have questions, you know how it is. They're gonna probably, not say anything. I'm independent. I don't know. These people don't know me. I don't know them. So I can make an independent judgment call. There's something not quite. There's something quite not quite right with Dick Allguire and what he's doing. And this experiment is total bullshit. It has no bearing on what's gonna happen. Now, is there going to be a civil war? Probably. Right? More than likely, it's heading that way. Now, was the experiment that he did relevant to collecting information on that? Hell no, not at all. Right? Not in the least bit. So why did he do it? I don't know. Right? I do know it's probably counterproductive, and it has an agenda behind it. You see. And so I would say that from now on, if you're looking at the Future Forecasting Group, because of people like Dick Allguire, you have to take everything they say with a grain of salt and be very critical, right? And you're thinking when you're looking at people like Dick Allguire and Courtney Brown and these different groups. A lot of he has a group. I'm not saying that they're not doing some real RV experiments, but what I'm saying is people like Courtney Brown and Dick Allguire, these people maybe also have a dual agenda. They strike me as pushing, some type of government, some type of propaganda from like an alphabet agency. So if you're following these people and you want to really learn RV and you want to understand the science of RV and you want to understand human consciousness and human psychology and you're studying these kind of things, take everything these people say with a grain of salt and be very critical. I'm going to leave it there.